Listen closely, my friends. There is a version of you that nothing can shake, not the rude comment, not the rejection, not the difficult person who seems to exist specifically to test your patience. Not the plan that fell apart, not the opinion of someone who does not know you, but feels entitled to judge you anyway, not the unexpected loss, not the unfair situation. Not even the person who knows exactly where you are vulnerable and aims there deliberately. Nothing. Not because you feel nothing. Not because you have numbed yourself to the world, but because you have built something inside yourself that the outside world simply cannot reach. A foundation. A place where the real you lives, underneath all the things that happen to you, that remains steady. When everything around it is not, that version of you exists. It is not a fantasy. It is not reserved for special people with extraordinary circumstances. It is available to you. And it is built, not through luck, not through the absence of difficulty, but through the specific daily practice of 10 lessons that the Stoics spent their entire lives teaching. Today, those lessons are yours. Before we begin, I need to say one thing clearly. Emotionally untouchable does not mean emotionally unavailable. It does not mean cold. It does not mean closed. It does not mean the performance of someone who has decided that not feeling is the same as not being hurt. Marcus Aurelius felt deeply. He grieved his children. He felt frustration. He felt the weight of things that were genuinely heavy. He wrote about all of it, honestly. In a journal he never intended for anyone to read. He was not a stone. He was a human being who had built something. A specific inner stability that allowed him to feel everything and still choose, still think clearly, still act from his values, still remain himself, even when what was happening was doing its best to change who he was. That is what emotionally untouchable means. Not feeling less, choosing more. Lesson 1. Understand that other people's behavior is about them, not you. This is the lesson that removes the most weight, the fastest, because most emotional pain does not come from what happened. It comes from what you decided the thing that happened means about you. Someone was unkind, and you decided it means you are not likable. Someone ignored you, and you decided it means you are not worth noticing. Someone criticized your work, and you decided it means you are not capable. But here is what Stoic philosophy says about almost every difficult behavior you will ever encounter. It is not about you. It is about them, about their frustration, their insecurity, their unresolved pain, their need to control, their specific way of managing a world that does not always cooperate with what they want. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." He was not being pessimistic. He was being precise. He understood that difficult behavior is part of the human landscape, not a verdict on him, not a comment on his worth. Just people being people. In all the complicated, imperfect ways that people are, the moment you genuinely make that shift, from this is about me to this is about them, the emotional charge of the behavior reduces significantly. Not because what happened was okay, because you stopped making it a verdict on yourself. Lesson 2. Build an identity that does not live in other people's opinions. Most people, without realizing it, have built their sense of self, partly or largely, on what other people think of them. And the problem with a self built on other people's opinions is that other people's opinions change constantly, without warning, without explanation. And the person whose identity shifts with every opinion is permanently unstable, permanently at the mercy of the next review, the next reaction, the next comment. Epictetus said, "Never depend on the admiration of others, not because admiration are bad, because depending on it is handing your stability to something you cannot control." And the Stoics were clear about this. Your stability, your genuine emotional foundation, must be built on something that does not move, your values, your character, your honest assessment of whether you acted in alignment with who you are. Not their assessment, yours build that foundation, and the opinions, which will always come. In all directions, positive and negative, land differently. They become information rather than verdicts. Interesting data rather than defining judgments. And the person whose identity does not depend on the verdict is the person the verdict cannot shake. Lesson 3. Master the gap between what happens and what you do next. This is the most practical lesson, and the one that, built over time, changes every difficult interaction you will ever have. Between what happens to you and what you do about it, there is a space, a tiny space. Sometimes it feels like less than a second, but it is always there. And in that space, your entire freedom lives. Because in that space, the emotional reaction has arrived. The feeling is present. The anger or the hurt or the frustration is real and acknowledged. But the action has not happened yet. And in that gap, you have a choice. Most people never find the gap. The trigger fires and the reaction follows. So automatically, that the space between them passes unoccupied. Marcus Aurelius called this the ruling faculty, the part of the mind that observes and chooses rather than just reacts, and the ruling faculty, like any faculty, gets stronger through use. Every time you find the gap, every time you pause, even for a breath, even for 3 seconds, before the reaction, you are building it. And the person who has built it is genuinely harder to rattle. Not because difficult things stop happening, because the gap has become a habit. And in the habit is the freedom. Lesson 4, feel the emotion, name it, then decide what to do with it. This is the lesson that most people skip, because they think emotional strength means not feeling, and they suppress. And suppression does not make emotions disappear, it makes them build pressure. Until they come out, sideways, at the wrong moment, with the wrong person, in the wrong way. The Stoic method is different. Feel it, fully name it precisely. Not just bad, not just upset. Specifically, I am feeling hurt by what they said. I am feeling anxious about how this will turn out. I am feeling angry because this feels unfair. The precision matters. Because naming an emotion precisely creates distance between you and the emotion, between the experiencer and the experience. And in that distance, the emotion changes from something you are to something you have, and something you have can be worked with, can be examined, can be directed somewhere useful. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things." The name you give the emotion is your opinion about what happened. And opinions, unlike events, can be reconsidered. Feel it, name it, then decide what to do with it. That sequence, instead of react immediately, is the difference between being run by emotions and running alongside them. Lesson 5, stop needing the situation to be different before you can be okay. This is the lesson that frees you from the most common emotional trap there is, conditional okayness, the version of okayness that says, I will be fine when this resolves. I will be calm when they apologize. I will feel better when the situation changes. I will be at peace when things are different. And because the situation is rarely exactly what we need it to be, because the apology often never comes, because things change, but never in the exact way we required, the okayness stays permanently in the future, permanently contingent, permanently out of reach. Marcus Aurelius wrote, confine yourself to the present, not to the fixed future, not to the resolved version. The present as it is, right now. With everything still unresolved, with the situation still imperfect, with the apology still not arrived, you can be okay right now, not because everything is fine. Because okayness does not require everything to be fine. It requires the decision, made in the present, to meet this moment from a place of groundedness, rather than from the gap between what is and what you need it to be. That decision, made daily, is one of the most powerful practices available. Lesson 6. Relâche what you cannot control. Every single day, this lesson has been said in different ways throughout this entire video. Because it is that important, because the failure to practice it is at the root of most emotional suffering. The worry about what they will decide, the anxiety about how it will turn out, the rumination about what was said, that you cannot unsay, or what was done, that you cannot undo, all of it belonging to the second pile, the things that are not yours. Epictetus said, some things are up to us, some things are not. And the daily practice, every morning, of genuinely sorting what belongs to which pile, and releasing what belongs in the second, not permanently, not pretending it does not matter, but releasing it for today, is the most reliable path to daily emotional freedom that exists. Because you cannot control outcomes. You cannot control other people. You cannot control what already happened. But you can control what you do with today. And the person who does that consistently is the person who is genuinely hard to rattle. Because most of what rattles people belongs in the second pile. And the person who has released the second pile has almost nothing left to be rattled by. Lesson 7. Protect your inner world like it is the only thing worth protecting. Because it is. Everything else, the reputation, the money, the relationships, the external life, can be rebuilt, has been rebuilt by people who lost far more than most of us will ever lose. But the inner world, the clarity of the mind, the stability of the character, the quality of the thinking, that is the source of everything. And what enters the inner world shapes it permanently. Which is why the Stoics were extraordinarily careful about who and what they allowed in, not cold, selective. Seneca wrote, associate with people who are likely to improve you. That instruction extends to everything. The content you consume, the conversations you join, the information you allow to repeat in your mind, the opinions you give space to, all of it is either building the inner world or disturbing it. And the person who protects the inner world, who is deliberate about what gets access, who does not let every opinion, every comment, every piece of content walk straight in and rearrange the furniture, is the person who remains stable when the world outside is not. Lesson 8. Choose who you become in the hard moments. This is the lesson that matters most, when the others are hardest to apply, because the hard moment arrives. It always arrives. The moment that tests everything you have been building. The moment where the reaction is right there, easy and available and justified. And the response requires something more. And in that moment, the decision you make about who you are going to be is the most important decision available to you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Not to respond in kind, not to match the energy, not to give the person who was difficult the satisfaction of having changed who you are, to be fundamentally unlike, the worst thing being directed at you. That specific choice, in the specific hard moment, is not weakness. It is the highest expression of strength available. And it is built, in advance, through the daily practice of all the other lessons, so that when the hard moment arrives, the choice is already made. Lesson 9. Remember that this feeling is temporary, even when it does not feel like it. When you are inside an emotion, when the hurt or the anger or the anxiety is fully present, it feels permanent. Like this is just your life now, like the feeling will always be this intensity, like the situation that created it will always be exactly this difficult. It will not. Not because time heals everything in the simplistic way people say, but because everything moves. Because nothing stays exactly as it is. Because the feeling that is completely overwhelming right now will be less overwhelming tomorrow, and less again next week, and will eventually be something you look back on, from the other side of it, with the clarity that was impossible from inside it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change. And change is nature's delight. The feeling that feels permanent is change. And change moves. Hold on to that. When the feeling tells you it will always be this, it will not. And knowing that, even imperfectly, even not fully believing it, creates just enough space to get through the next hour, and then the next, and that is all you need. Lesson 10. Become the stillest person in every storm. This is the lesson that all 9 have been building toward. Because here is what the Stoics were ultimately trying to create. Not a person without emotion. Not a person who has solved the problem of being human. A person who, when the storm arrives, is the stillest thing in the room, not untouched, still. The difference between those two things is the difference between numbness and mastery. Numbness has nothing to offer the storm. Stillness, genuine groundedness in the middle of genuine difficulty, is the most valuable thing available to the person experiencing it, and to everyone around them, because the still person thinks more clearly, decides more wisely, speaks more precisely, and provides, without trying to, something that the people around them desperately need, evidence that it is possible to be okay in the middle of this. That the storm, however real, cannot remove the thing that matters most, the person inside it, and their ability to choose who they are going to be while it rages. Listen closely, my friends, one final time. You are not trying to become someone who does not feel. You are trying to become someone who feels everything, and still chooses, still thinks, still acts from their values, still remains themselves, through every storm, every test, every moment where something outside tried to change who you are inside. That person, built through these 10 lessons, practiced daily, returned to honestly, is not a fantasy. They are the version of you that has always been possible, starting today. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, not the strength of someone who was never hurt. The strength of someone who was, and chose anyway. That is the strength worth building, and it starts right now." If this found you when you needed it, share it with someone who is letting the outside world determine how they feel inside. Supplies for new Stoic wisdom every single week.